Hi and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about moods in the English language. If you haven't seen my video on tenses, aspects and moods, please watch it first and then return to this video, as today we'll continue talking about moods. The link to that previous video you can find in the description down below. Today I will elaborate upon the subject, presuming that you already have some basic knowledge on what a mood is and what are the three main moods of the English language. In grammar, moods are features that characterize verbs and help speakers express their attitude to what they're saying. There are many moods that exist in other languages, for example, interrogative, indicative, imperative, jussive, subjunctive, inferential, potential, and many other. They can generally be divided into two big categories, irrealis and realis moods. The names speak for themselves. Realis moods express real facts, while irrealis moods express our attitude to reality, desires, wishes, commands, and many other things. In English, we generally speak of the three main moods, which are indicative, imperative, and subjunctive. So what is a mood? In everyday life, we use the word mood to speak about our disposition or the way we feel. We may say, "I'm in a bad mood," if we are not feeling good about our day. We may be in festive mood when we are happy, or not in the mood to do something when we don't feel like doing it. A moody person is someone who has frequent mood swings, that is, someone whose emotions change frequently. And just as in our everyday life people can be in different moods, in grammar sentences may also have different grammatical moods. Sentences may convey different attitude to reality. For example, the sentence "this is a rose bush" states a fact, but this sentence "if only she loved dancing" expresses a wish. The fact is she doesn't like dancing, so the speaker's wish is contrary to fact. This way we see that these two sentences convey very different attitude to reality, and in the language of grammar, they belong to different grammatical moods. As we already know, mood is the quality of a verb that conveys the speaker's attitude toward an action, event, or situation. In general, there are three types of ideas we may want to express. They are factual statements, requests or commands, wishes, desires, expectations, suggestions, and things like that. This means there are three main moods. They are the indicative mood, which is used to make factual statements, the imperative mood, which is used to express a request or command, and the subjunctive mood, which is used to show a wish, doubt, desire, expectation, demand, suggestion, and other things that are contrary to fact. Some grammarians believe there are only three moods in English, and there are others who will say there are five. Let's look at these sentences. The sun rises in the east. Anne's favorite color is white. There was no furniture in the room. They have never been to Australia. It will snow soon. They all belong to the indicative mood because they all state facts. The sun rises in the east is a generally known fact. Anne's favorite color is white. It's a fact that I know about. And there was no furniture in the room. It's a fact that the speaker witnessed. They have never been to Australia. It's a fact from their biography. And it will snow soon. It's a fact the speaker knows about the approaching winter. Let's look now at these sentences. Do come in. Please sit down. Don't make noise. Don't step on the grass. They all are commands or requests, so they belong to the imperative mood. And the sentences like "I wish it were snowing" or "if I had more money, I would buy that car" express something which is not real, something that the speaker dreams of. So they belong to the subjunctive mood. As you might have noticed, only the indicative mood has tenses. Now let's look at these sentences and let us try to decide whether they belong to the indicative, the imperative, or the subjunctive mood. Before adding the ingredients to the baking dish, line it with foil. This is the imperative mood because this sentence gives us an instruction what to do. She mentioned going to the mall, but I don't know what she decided to do in the end. This sentence is in the indicative mood. It tells us about facts. It would be wiser to pay mortgage than to pay rent. This sentence is in the subjunctive mood. It would be wiser to do it. But that's not what we do in reality. It's just a supposition. My brother doesn't like to be told what to do. It's the indicative mood because this sentence expresses a fact. Should you have any doubts, it would be better if you clarify them with your supervisor. This sentence is again in the subjunctive mood. It doesn't state a fact, but expresses a suggestion. Never have I seen such a beautiful woman in my life. This sentence is in the indicative mood because it states a fact. I have never seen such a beautiful woman. Pay attention to the inverted word order. Never have I seen, right? I wouldn't live in this city if I were you. It's the subjunctive mood because I am not you. The fact is that I'm not you. At school, he had always got away with doing the bare minimum amount of work. The indicative mood, it's a fact from somebody's past. Do come in. The imperative mood, it's an invitation. I suggest that you be there as early as possible. What is this? This is the subjunctive mood. This sentence expresses a suggestion, but not a fact. In addition to the three main moods, two more are distinguished by some grammarians: the conditional and the interrogative mood. These two moods, though, are defined by the types of sentences they are used in rather than by particular verb forms. The conditional mood is a grammatical mood used in conditional sentences, and the interrogative mood is a mood that is used to ask question, that is used in questions, in interrogative sentences. What is a conditional sentence? A conditional sentence expresses a condition on which a certain result or consequence may be achieved. Some examples are: they will lend you the car on condition that you pay a deposit. I will lend you my car if you promise to return it by Friday. The first sentence is a little bit more formal than the second one, but both of them express a condition and what will happen if this condition is met. Conditional sentences, or as they are sometimes called conditional mood, are sentences that include either subjunctive forms of verb, if they are contrary to fact, or indicative forms, if we speak about a real condition, a condition the realization of which is possible. This is important because some conditional sentences contain the subjunctive mood, whereas others do not. The subjunctive mood is only found in conditional sentences if they express conditions which are contrary to reality. In other words, which are unreal. If a conditional sentence contains a conditional subordinate clause that expresses something which is real or will be real, it doesn't have the subjunctive mood. It uses the indicative mood. From this, we understand that there are different types of conditional sentences. Now let's take a closer look. There are 4 types of conditional sentences: zero conditional or implicative conditional. Why is it called this way? Because an action or a situation is implicated. For example, if you don't eat, you die. You will inevitably die if you don't eat for a particular amount of days. The first conditional or predicative conditional expresses something that might or will happen in the future. If we have enough rain, we'll get good crops. If you happen to see him again, will you apologize? We speak about situations that may or will take place in the future. They seem absolutely real. Why not? If we have enough rain, we'll get good crops. If you happen to see him again, will you apologize? It's a question but it speaks of a possible situation. There are also the second and the third conditional that express things that are contrary to fact. The second conditional is used for hypothetical or unlikely situations. If you slept more, you wouldn't be so tired. But the fact is, you don't sleep enough. The third conditional expresses impossible situations and regrets about the past. If you had been more attentive, you wouldn't have been robbed. This is something that cannot be changed anymore. So as we see from these sentences, there are situations that are unreal today and will not be real in the future. They will never be real. They will never be possible. And there are situations that are only unreal today, but may become possible in the future. We may also speak about the past, the situations which were not real in the past and will remain unreal forever because we cannot change the past. This leads us to the idea that conditional sentences can be expressed in different moods, right? In realis and in irrealis moods. In case of English, we speak about the indicative mood and the subjunctive mood. That's true for all conditional sentences. They either contain the indicative mood or they contain the subjunctive mood. So zero conditional and first conditional express real conditions, and thus they contain the indicative mood. The second and the third conditional express unreal conditions, hypothetical situations, or regrets about the past. Thus, they are in the subjunctive mood. By real condition, we understand something that may happen. By unreal, something that cannot happen. Let's look at two consistent patterns of human life. In the first case, we'll start our sentence with "if you don't eat." In the second, "if you ate too much." The first condition obviously is a real one. It contains the present simple tense of the indicative mood. If you don't eat. The second, "if you ate too much," states something which is contrary to fact, something imaginary, and it is in the subjunctive mood. The past simple tense is used here because only the verb to be has its distinct subjunctive form in the modern day English. So if you don't eat, you lose weight, you become weaker, you die. These are all facts. These are all things that inevitably will happen to somebody who doesn't eat. So they are real, that's why they are expressed by the indicative mood. If you ate too much, you would gain weight, you would become overweight, you would die. These are hypothetical situations. The fact is that the person we are speaking about doesn't eat too much. Let's look at some examples of conditional sentences of the first type. If I become rich, I will buy a Lamborghini. I will live in a big house. I will play golf. I will engage in charity. I won't have to go to the office anymore. I will have more time for my hobbies. These are things that may happen in the future, so they are expressed by the indicative mood. If I become, the present simple is used. I will buy, I will live, I will play, etc. The future simple tense is used. Let's look at some conditional sentences of the second type. If I were a cat, obviously it's an imaginary situation. So if I were a cat, I would sleep all day long. If I were a cat, I would love fresh meat. If I were a cat, I would window hunt, I would hate closed doors. I would play with my tail, I would stay up all night. These are all speculations, things that will never be real. Thus, the subjunctive mood is used. Though we will have a separate video on how we form conditional sentences of these four types, let's take a quick look at the form. So if we speak about the indicative mood, for example, zero conditional, if you don't eat, you die, We have a present tense of a simple aspect here, so that is the present simple tense. If I were a cat, I would play with my tail. This subjunctive mood is used here. So I would play is a modal verb plus the bare infinitive, which we also call the analytical subjunctive. And in the subordinate clause of the sentence, we have this where. What is it? It's the synthetic subjunctive. What do I mean by the analytical subjunctive and the synthetic subjunctive? I mean the way they are formed. We'll speak about the subjunctive mood in more detail because there will be a big video on this channel dedicated to the subjunctive mood and to all peculiarities of this phenomenon in English. For now, this is what we should remember. These two sentences, though they are both conditional sentences, they are expressed in different moods. Real conditions are expressed in the indicative mood, unreal conditions are expressed in the subjunctive mood. Please also note that subjunctive doesn't equal past simple. The subjunctive mood and the past simple are two different phenomena. The thing is, today, in English, the subjunctive mood is barely visible. The analytical forms like this one, would play, dominate in the language. In some grammar books, you may read that to form the second conditional, you need to use the past simple tense, which is actually not quite correct, because obviously for the first person singular in the past and for the third person singular in the past, we would use was, not were. To make things easier, some grammars say that you need to use the past simple in conditional sentences, which is like not quite true, right? For now, it is important for us to distinguish between moods and between real and unreal condition. One can use lemon juice in house cleaning. If I use lemon juice to clean my faucets, they become shiny. If you used lemon juice to clean your faucets, they would be shiny too. Please use lemon juice instead of chemicals. The first sentence is in the indicative mood. It is a factual statement. One can use lemon juice in house cleaning. True. The second sentence is in the indicative mood. It's a conditional sentence, and you might sometimes see that it is called the conditional mood. The third sentence is in the subjunctive mood. It is an imaginary situation, unreal in the present. And the fourth sentence is in the imperative mood. I give an instruction, or I politely ask somebody to do something. Please use lemon juice instead of chemicals. Do it, right? Here they are, all the moods of the English language. Now, some grammarians would say that there is also the interrogative mood. In English, questions belong to this kind of mood, right? Any question refers to the interrogative mood, so another word for questions is interrogatives or interrogative sentences. From the verb to interrogate, to ask questions of somebody. Let's look at some examples. What pasta do you like? Have you ever been to Morocco? He doesn't live here anymore, does he? Would you like to come with us, or would you prefer to stay at home? These are different types of questions. There are 5 distinct types of interrogative sentences in English. The distinction is based on their grammatical structure. Let's see. We have general or yes/no questions, special or WH questions, alternative questions, disjunctive or tag questions, and inverted or equal questions. Let's look at some examples. General questions start with auxiliary verbs. Do they eat meat? Yes, they do. Have you ever been to Spain? No, I haven't. Is she going to be at the party? Yes, she is. So as you see, we can always answer such questions with yes or no. Special questions or WH questions are called this way because they start with a question word. which typically begins with letters WH. We have how, but how is an exception, right? What are you doing? I'm singing. Where was he born? In Vancouver. Why is she mad at me? I've no idea. Alternative questions contain an alternative. Is she Spanish or Italian? Would you stay or come with us? Are they Kathy's or Aaron's friends? Disjunctive or tag questions have a tag in the end. You're hungry, aren't you? This bag is Laura's, isn't it? Let's dance, shall we? And inverted questions or equal questions. I'm eating souvlaki. You're eating what? He's been in Antananarivo. He's been where? I don't do mornings. You what? So they kind of repeat what was said, but insert a question word instead of the word in the sentence we want to ask a question about. We're not talking about how questions are formed in this video. We'll do that in a different one dedicated to the English word order. Here, what is important is to understand that according to some grammarians, we have this interrogative mood in the language, and all questions belong to this mood because the interrogative mood is about questioning. Apart from these questions, we can also distinguish other types, but they don't have any distinct grammar structures or features. The differentiation here is based on their functions, on what they convey. For example, you might hear of closed questions, open questions, funnel questions, rhetorical questions, comparison questions, clarifying questions, and many more. And by these names, you see that they are divided into these groups according to their purpose, according to what they do. Yeah, clarifying questions, clarify information, comparison questions, offer a comparison, etc. This classification has nothing to do with specific grammatical forms, but rather with a function of a question. What do you mean by matrimonial? Is a special question or a WH question, but its function is to clarify what the word matrimonial means. Thus, grammatically, it's a special question, but functionally it can be called a clarifying question. Just like conditional sentences, interrogative sentences may be in different moods, and this leads us to the thought that the so-called interrogative mood and the so-called conditional mood are not actually moods, but types of sentences. So, interrogative sentences in the indicative mood. They like spicy pizza. Do they like spicy pizza? They like spicy pizza. It's a statement in the indicative mood. Whereas do they like spicy pizza is a question in the indicative mood. We are asking about a fact, and the answer we'll receive will be a fact. So we are dealing with the indicative mood. The subjunctive mood. If they liked spicy food, they would order this pizza. Would they order this pizza if they liked spicy food? You see, you can form a question about an imaginary situation. Why not? Let's now look at these sentences and we'll try to decide what mood they belong to. Read through the included instructions before you start. It's the imperative mood because it's an instruction. Wouldn't it be nice to have a trip to the North Pole? It's an interrogative sentence in the subjunctive mood. If you break any of these ancient vases, heads will roll. It's a so-called indicative conditional, that is, a conditional sentence in the indicative mood because it expresses a real condition, something that may happen. I wouldn't fix that cord by myself if I were you. It's a subjunctive conditional because it's a conditional sentence in the subjunctive mood, and it is in the subjunctive mood because it speaks about an imaginary situation. When you put your heart into your work, it sells much better. Again, it's a conditional sentence in the indicative mood. namely it is zero conditional. The sentence speaks of something which is always true. You have never done that before, have you? It's an interrogative sentence in the indicative mood. Go bring us some wine. The imperative mood. I advise that he be suspended. The subjunctive mood. All the pages are in the wrong order in this paper. The indicative mood. Do ask her out, or else someone else will. An imperative conditional. This sentence contains a condition, but also it contains a command. So it's in the imperative mood, but it is a conditional sentence. I hope things in this lesson were not very convoluted. You might read there are 5 moods in the English language: indicative, imperative, subjunctive, conditional, and interrogative. And there are reasons to think this way. But predominantly you will hear that there are 3 main moods in the English language, which resonates with me very much because conditional and interrogative are rather types of sentences than moods. But still, the topic is quite disputable. What we need to know is to how we form all those sentences and how to express our ideas correctly. That's why I will have a separate video on the conditional sentences and on the subjunctive mood on this channel. There you will find all the answers to your questions about the subjunctive mood. Now let's sum up what we have learned in this lesson. What type of sentences is used to describe things, people, places, and happenings? The answer is the indicative mood. For example, we used to live in a tiny 2-bedroom house downtown. What type of sentences is used to clarify information? The answer is interrogative. For example, what does this word mean? What sentences serve to tell a person what we expect them to do? The answer is imperative. For example, take the dog out with you. What type of sentences is used to express suppositions? The answer is subjunctive. The example: suppose we were on an uninhabited island, would we survive? And what sentences do we use to tell somebody about the consequences of their actions? The answer is conditional. For example, I won't speak to you if you don't apologize. This is all I have to say about the moods. Please make sure that you watch the previous video on aspects, moods, and tenses. Subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss the videos on the subjunctive mood and conditional sentences. And please leave your thoughts down below whether you think there are 3 or 5 moods in the English language. See you later!